Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back to #ZooOpenOnline. Today we're exploring the Ocean Lab in our aquarium. So we're going to get to see up close and even touch a few of these really cool sea creatures. So we're going to give everybody just a few moments to get in here and join us. And as you do that, let us know that you're here, that you can hear us, you can see us, and where you guys are watching from. We always like to give our shout outs this morning. So let's see who's joining us here today to check out the Ocean Lab in the aquarium. Once again, we are committed to doing these every day that the zoo is closed, every weekday. We'll be coming to you live at 10:30 to move all around the zoo and show you guys what's still going on, even when you can't be here to join us. So we are excited to have you guys and hope that you've been enjoying these. We're certainly enjoying doing them. We're learning a lot ourselves too. So good morning, Anthony, Wyatt, and Carlin. Hi, Gavin and Grayson in Kansas City. Hi, Gage in Michigan. Good morning, Kelly. She says it's Charlotte's 5th birthday. Happy birthday, Charlotte. You're a whole hand today. That's awesome. Hi, Oliver and Sunshine. Good morning, Amber. Hi, Jaden and Jackson. Hey, Gabriella and Julianne. Hi, Isabel, Colton, and Cassidy. Good morning, Rebecca and Roland. Thanks for tuning in this morning, guys. Hi, Dawn and Tanner. We're glad you guys could join us today. Bridget says her son and I watch every morning. Oh, that's awesome. We love to hear that. Hi, Chad and Alex. Hey, Christine. Good morning, Abby. She loves starfish. Well, today's your day. We're going to be talking all about them. Hey, Blake and Elena. Good morning, Kathy, Catherine, and Lily. Hey, Connie and Link. Thanks for tuning in. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started with our usual morning announcements. We try to run through these pretty quickly, but we want to make sure that you guys are still up to date with everything that's going on at your Toledo Zoo. So if you haven't seen it on our social page, we are offering Mother's Day brunch to go. You can pick it up Saturday afternoon, and that way Mom could enjoy brunch in bed or just a time to sleep in. It feeds 4 to 6 people, just like our meals on the go. It's all chef made. And it even comes with a native plant from our native plant greenhouse that we've been in several times. So we hope you guys will take advantage of that. Check it all out at toledozoo.org/brunch. And also you can go to toledozoo.org/meals-on-the-go. You got one more chance to enjoy soft tacos or chicken or eggplant parm tonight. Get those orders in before 1 o'clock. And don't forget about our Jupe Mode t-shirts. We have those available. We have a link on our social page. You can get those for your entire crew, and $10 from each of those t-shirts comes back to the zoo. We are leading the Here for Good campaign with our t-shirt sales, so keep those going for us. We really appreciate it, guys. And once again, thank you for donating during our Giving Tuesday campaign. Altogether, we raised quite a bit of money to help sustain our zoo. We did reach our online goal of $2,020 to help us get through 2020. So thank you so very much. And please continue renewing your memberships, donating during our live feeds, and becoming ZooPal sponsors. All of those also make great Mother's Day gifts. We've got a lot of options for you. Check it all out at toledozoo.org/donate. We recently added some animal paintings done during our Wild About Art Fair. So check those out. And also our education department, which Josh, who is here with us today, is a part of. They're still doing so many virtual classrooms and experiences, gardening tips, and training your pet. And we've even added a virtual yoga to the mix. So check it all out at toledozoo.org/virtual. All right, guys, we're going to turn it over to Josh to talk to us about all these cool sea creatures.
Yeah, so if you joined in yesterday, we were talking invertebrates, but we were talking about all the invertebrates on land. So insects, spiders, scorpions, things like that. Well, we're still talking invertebrates, but now we're going into the ocean. So An invertebrate is an animal that doesn't have a backbone. So unlike fish, reptiles, amphibians, mammals, and birds that have bones, all of the animals we're going to look at today don't have bones. Now, some have some hard structures to give their body shape. Others are a really soft animal, so they have a fluid body shape. So there's a lot of diversity. In fact, there's as much diversity in the ocean or marine invertebrates as there are in the vertebrate population.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different types. So we're going to take a little tour of the world and a tour of some different types of invertebrates. So this first one that we're looking at, and we're looking at its underside, which is actually the more colorful side.
Yeah.
This is a chocolate chip sea star. And in a minute, we'll look at the other side and see why it's called a chocolate chip sea star. So this is a type of sea star. Some people call it a starfish. But we use sea star because it's not actually a fish. It is what's called an echinoderm, which means spiny skin, and it has a little bit of a spiny skin to it. What we're looking at, all that bright purple, are its feet.
Ooh.
So a sea star moves using those tube feet, and they work just like little suction cups. So imagine if you had to move with hundreds of little suction cups. So they're not known for their speed.
No.
Because each one needs to attach and then let go and then attach and let go as it moves along. Now, right in the center of it, right there, is its mouth. So that's where it feeds. And sea stars are known for a really kind of gross and weird way of feeding. Instead of getting the food into its mouth to its stomach, it takes its stomach and puts it out of its mouth and then digests it that way.
Oh my goodness.
A little bit gross, but kind of cool. Now these are what we call the arms of the sea star, and you can see I just touched it and it kind of tucked in those tube feet for some protection. This type of sea star typically has 5 arms, but a sea star doesn't have to have 5 arms. They could have 6 arms, 10 arms, 20 arms. Different sea stars have different numbers of arms. And sea stars can regenerate those arms. So if they lose one or one gets damaged, they have the possibility of growing it back.
That
All right,
is so
let's
cool.
see if we can look at the opposite side of this chocolate chip sea star. There we go. So you can see if you had a star-shaped cookie cutter, you might be able to make a cookie that looks kind of like this with the chocolate chips.
Absolutely. Those are really cool. All right, we're getting some questions here. Charlotte would like to know, why are sea stars so sticky?
Why are they sticky? Well, they need to hang on. A lot of them live in what's called the intertidal zone, or like a reef. So waves are crashing, water's raising and lowering. There's a lot of activity there. So if you're a little sea star, you want to be able to hang on to the reef. Also, those tube feet and that stickiness help them to get their food. Now, it might not look like it, but these are predators. So they are hunters. And one thing that they hunt sometimes are mollusks, especially things like clams. Now, a sea star is strong enough that they can open up the shell of that mollusk. So they need those sticky tube feet to be able to help pry it open.
Wow, that is really cool. And Josh, when people come to the zoo and they come to this ocean lab, do they get a chance to touch all of this?
Yeah, we bring these animals up. These animals that are in these bins up high are just a portion of our collection, and we rotate through them. So we ask people to gently rinse their hands, and then they're able to reach into this tank and actually touch, which you can really understand why they're called an echinoderm when you touch a sea star. It feels a little sandpapery, a little spiny. It's hard to describe. You have to touch it yourself.
Very cool. And just for comparison, that starfish is about the size of my hand.
Yes, and that is not even the largest of the chocolate chip sea stars that we have. That's kind of the mid-size one.
Very cool. And Carlin wants to know, how many suction cups did you say they have on them?
Oh, they could have hundreds. Yeah. One question we get a lot is, do they have eyes? And they don't have eyes like we think of eyes, but on the end of each of their arms, they have something that looks kind of like their tube feet, so they can sense light and dark. That way they can navigate and have a good understanding of where they're going, but they don't see quite like we do.
And Morgan, age 11, wants to know if it can live in freshwater and saltwater.
Oh, everything that we're looking at today are saltwater animals. So this is a saltwater tank, and this is a relatively warm saltwater tank. Although some of these animals can live in some colder waters.
Awesome. And not to throw off your list here, but I'm seeing this guy crawl out, and you said we don't always get to see him. So maybe it'd be a good chance to talk. Oh, of course, he went right back in when I started to talk about him.
Well, let's talk a little bit about crustaceans then.
Okay.
So that was a little crustacean, and this is a much larger crustacean. So these are both types of hermit crabs, and hermit crabs are a crustacean. So they're related to other crabs. They're related to lobsters. And there is a wide variety of hermit crabs. If you've been to our museum, the coconut crab is actually a type of hermit crab. And some spend a lot of time in the water, some spend just a little bit of time in the water. And that little orange crab is our Halloween hermit crab. So it's a little more shy than our big hermit crab. Now, if you notice, both of them are in shells. And that is because the back end of the hermit crab is soft and vulnerable. These are not their shells. So they'll take a snail shell. So this is a crowned conch shell. And once the snail has died, they'll live in there. And their tail or their end can wrap and hook in there so they're very secure. And they pull this around with them. Now, as a hermit crab gets bigger, it needs to find a bigger shell. So sometimes there's groups of hermit crabs kind of waiting for one to move up and then scoping out the next home, so they can kind of trade up.
They have some hand-me-downs, like,
that's right.
Like siblings, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, but they are what's called a crustacean, and just like other arthropods, so things like insects, their body has a hard shell too that we call an exoskeleton. Crabs are really known in the ocean for being kind of the cleanup crew, the scavengers. Mm-hmm. So they'll go through, and if there's a dead fish or things like that, they might be one of the animals that help clean that up and eat the detritus, it's called.
And you were telling us this little guy is called the Halloween crab because of its striped legs. Can you guys see? They're striped light orange and dark orange.
Yeah, so looks like a pair of socks that a witch might wear, kind of those orange striped socks.
Yeah.
And it just tucked in because our horseshoe crab just ran into it.
Went right over it. Yep.
Both of these crabs have pinchers, and they use those for defense, although their primary defense is to tuck into that shell, and they use it to get the food that they eat.
And so the little guy with the orange legs is the Halloween hermit crab.
Yep. And then this is one we would call a striped hermit crab.
Okay. And the bigger one here you said is our horseshoe.
Yes, that's a horseshoe crab, which as we find out sometimes, animals get names that don't make sense. The horseshoe crab is not actually a crab. It looks like a crab. It has some features like a crab, but it is more closely related to scorpions and spiders than it is to the crabs that are in this tank with it. And if we look at it, one thing that it shares in common with like a spider is its body parts. So it has one really big body part there that's called a cephalothorax. Basically, it's the head and the main body kind of fused together. Whereas we can turn our head, an ant can turn its head, a horseshoe crab and a spider can't turn their head.
Okay.
And then they have an abdomen and then the tail. Now the tail is really amazing on a horseshoe crab. One thing that you might look at it from the top down, it looks a little bit like a stingray, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it gives it that appearance of a stingray, and it uses that tail for all sorts of things. its tail can be a little bit of a defense. It can stick it up, and it's spiny. When they're swimming, it uses it as a rudder so they can steer. And if it got flipped over for some reason, it can use it to flip itself back over. So it really is a pretty amazing thing.
It really
now,
is.
We're not going to flip that one over, but this is what's called a molt of a horseshoe crab. So as they get bigger, they need to molt. They're going to molt about 16 times in their life.
Wow.
And they need to do that in order to grow bigger. So this is what it looks like on the underside, and the mouth would be right there in the middle.
And Kyler, age 6, wants to know, how big can a hermit crab get? And then to play off of that, talk to us about how big a horseshoe crab can get too.
Sure. So the hermit crab, it depends on the type of hermit crab. So the largest ones are like our coconut crabs. So they can get as big as a coconut. There are really small hermit crabs too. A horseshoe crab can get about the size of a dinner plate.
Wow.
And they live about 20 years or so.
All right. And Melissa wants to know, are they always this active?
Do you know, the crabs tend to be much more active than some of the other residents of this tank. So yeah, they like to cruise around and check things out.
And Bennett, age 8, has been wanting to get a hermit crab as a pet. He wants to know, which kind should he get?
Well, one thing that I want to caution with hermit crabs is that they take a lot of care. It might seem like they're a really easy animal, but they need the right setup, the right humidity, and you're going to want to make sure that whatever invertebrate animal you're getting, or really whatever animal, that it was sourced and not taken from the wild, so that it was raised from captivity. So with that in mind, I think if you go to a responsible pet shop, they're going to be able to guide you with that on which one is the best choice for you.
All right. And Andrew, age 6, would like to know if they can swim to the darkest part of the ocean.
Oh, do you know what? None of the animals that we're looking at here are going to be in the darkest parts of the ocean. They're not going to go in those deep trenches. They're on what we would call the continental shelf. So that's kind of the part right by the shore. And it would be maybe 100 feet deep at the deepest.
And Connie would like to know, do horseshoe crabs have eyes?
They do. They actually have 10 eyes throughout their body. It has 2 main eyes called compound eyes, and they work kind of like the eyes of bees. So it's a lot of eyes collected together that give them kind of that image. If you were to look through kind of like a kaleidoscope where you see a lot of different images, that's how a compound eye kind of works.
Really?
So their eyes can't really focus like ours, but they can see a lot.
And Elena, age 7, and Blake, age 6, want to know if horseshoe crabs can sting.
Can they sting? Well, they definitely have that tail, and it can be sharp, and their legs have some pinchers on it, but they're really not harmful to people. So unless you were walking on a beach and happened to step on one, they're not known to be an aggressive animal or anything like that.
And Sarah asks, are they poisonous?
They are not poisonous, no. So one really cool thing about horseshoe crabs, so our blood has iron in it, and our blood is red. Horseshoe crabs have blood with copper in it, and their blood is actually blue.
Ooh.
So there's a lot of research in the blood and the system of the horseshoe crab in terms of medicine, because their blood and their systems has some resistance to some bacterias and things like that. So a lot of doctors and scientists are studying the blood of horseshoe crabs to see what can be applied to human medicine.
And Isabel asks, do any of the hermit crabs have predators?
Yeah, do you know what? All of these animals have predators, and some of them, a different version of them would be a predator. So there are crabs that would eat sea stars. There are sea stars that would eat crabs. There are all sorts of things. So they do have a lot of predators, not to mention the vertebrates in the ocean. There are fish that will eat some of these things too.
And we're getting quite a pile of sea stars over here coming up to check out what's going on.
Yeah,
huh?
they like to come up to the surface sometimes. You know, let's take a look at this little guy. So this is our pencil urchin. And it might not look like it, but it is actually a relative of the sea star. If you look carefully in it, let me move it just a little bit. You can see 5 lines on its body. So those 5 lines actually line up similar to the 5 arms of our sea star. So it has what's called radial symmetry, just like a sea star has. So it's like 5 different segments of it. Now, the pencil urchin has these spines. In the case of the pencil urchin, they're not actually that sharp. There are a lot of different types of urchins, and some of them have some extremely sharp spines. But this urchin uses its spines mostly to hold on. So even though it's related to the sea star, it doesn't have nearly the number of tube feet. So it does have some, and that's how it moves and holds on, but it will use these spines. It'll actually close in on a rock, coral, things like that, to help hold it in place. And that does 2 things. 1, it's not going to float away with the current. And 2, it makes it really hard for a predator to grab it.
Sarah wants to know, how big does this pencil urchin get?
Yeah, we have some larger pencil urchins in the tank, but they're not a super large urchin.
All right. And then we also have another creature to look at over here in this tank that Angie from the aquarium staff brought out for us.
Yes. So one more group of marine invertebrates. So we looked at some echinoderms with the urchin and the sea star, and we looked at some crustaceans. This is in the group Cnidaria, which means stinging cells, and this is a moon jelly. So this one is an adult moon jelly, and you might notice it looks like there's not much to it, and there isn't that much to it. Moon jellies are comprised mostly of their bell. Looks kind of like a mushroom shape. And that bell will move to give it a little bit of direction. But for the most part, jellies go with the flow. And where the current is taking them is where they go. Now, again, I said a lot of these are predators. The moon jelly is no exception. So it might not look like a predator because we think of predators like the shark with the mouth and the sharp teeth ready to hunt. But this is also a hunter, and it'll hunt all sorts of things floating in the water. This is an experience that periodically we even have this at the Ocean Lab, and we let people touch the bell. And it feels very unique. It's hard to describe.
It really is. Corey and I took part in this before we went on camera, and we both said it's harder, has more body to it than you think it does. And I likened it to silicone.
Yeah.
So it's very cool. This is a new experience that we just started this year to be able to do this. It took a lot of behind the scenes work for our aquarium staff to make this happen, but it is a very, very cool experience for people to get. And just so that they know, we do have a moon jelly exhibit over there.
Correct.
And as you guys can see, these moon jellies are clear, but you can change the color in the exhibit over there.
Yeah, as you change the lighting of the exhibit, there's a little bit of reflectiveness that's coming through the moon jellies, and that makes them appear to be different colors.
Yeah. All right, so Sarah wants to know, are moon jellies poisonous?
They are not. So there are a lot of different types of jellies, and some their stinging cells can be quite harmful to people. But in the case of the moon jelly, it is not.
All right. And Luke would like to know, why are they called jellyfish?
Oh, well, that's the same as the starfish. So back when these originally got their names, if it was in the water, maybe we should add the word fish to it. So there's a lot of examples. Jellyfish, starfish. There's an animal related to an octopus called a cuttlefish. None of these are true fish. So we try to call it a jelly instead of a jellyfish.
Yep, and that's why you guys, are they related to sea nettles?
They are. They're kind of 2 different branches of that group, but yeah, they're related to the sea nettle, which is another type of jelly, but different than the moon jelly.
Yes. And Isabel asks, where are moon jellies found?
Oh, that's a great question. These are worldwide. So most of what we saw today are Atlantic Ocean invertebrates, but moon jellies can be found in the oceans worldwide. And the only other thing that is not from the Atlantic is that chocolate chip sea star, which is from the Pacific Ocean.
All right. And Alex wants to know, what do you feed moon jellies?
Oh, that's a great question. If we look, you can kind of see some of that pinkish. Our jellies get like a little tiny shrimp, like a krill.
Okay.
In fact, a lot of our animals in this tank get fed shrimp.
And Stevie asks, do they have mouths?
No, not in the sense that you think of a mouth. They're able to digest from the underside.
All right. And let's see, we've had a couple questions. Kristen, Rebecca, and a couple others. How old can they get? How long do they live?
You know, that's a great question. And that is a very tough question when it comes to a moon jelly because of their life cycle. And we actually have a diagram of that life cycle. So the ones we're looking at right here are adults, but there are the possibility that a moon jelly can cycle through a life cycle itself. So it's really hard to determine the age of a moon jelly.
All right. And Catherine would like to know, how big can they get?
Oh, this is a full-size moon jelly.
And let's see, it's a little bit bigger than my whole hand. Very cool. All right. Let's go back here. Mackenzie wants to know, have you ever gotten stung by a jelly?
I have not. No, I haven't had any issues with any of these tanks or any marine invertebrate. But there definitely are marine invertebrates out there that you want to be careful and you want to be cautious. Granted, we're not next to the ocean, but if you were to travel to a place where you're near a reef, it's great to look at the things in a reef, but you want to make sure that you're respecting them and take some pictures, but don't disturb the animals.
All right. And Houston, age 4, wants to know, besides the reflection in our exhibit, do moon jellies ever change color?
They don't. They're actually just kind of an opaque color. So they might appear to change color by taking on the color that's around them, but they're really mostly clear.
And Mackenzie, age 12, asks, how many different types of sea stars are there?
Oh, I don't have a good answer to that. There's a significant number of different sea stars. There's sea stars, there's brittle stars that kind of start with a circle on the inside and have really long, spiny looking arms. There's some called like the crown of thorns sea star. So there's a lot of different types of sea stars. That's like asking how many different types of beetles there are.
An awful lot.
Yes.
And Liv, age 9, who has 2 hermit crabs, wants to know, how do you tell the difference between a boy and a girl hermit crab?
That is a very tough thing to do, and without knowing the type of hermit crab, I don't have a good guess. With a lot of invertebrates, it's hard to tell male from female.
And Henry, age 7, asks, how many types of horseshoe crabs are there?
There's just the one horseshoe crab. So this horseshoe crab is from the Atlantic coast. So if you ever travel to North Carolina, really from Delaware down to Florida, you can find horseshoe crabs. And sometimes they really group on the beaches. And they do that when they lay eggs. There's actually birds that fly from South America to North America that time their migration to hermit crabs laying their eggs so they can stop at beaches to eat, or not hermit crab, horseshoe crabs, so they can eat the horseshoe crab eggs.
Oh, wow.
So they're really important. In fact, that's one of the single most important things that we think of when we're trying to talk about how an ocean invertebrate impacts a terrestrial animal in its migration. So it's really amazing how interconnected the oceans and the land are.
And Danielle asks, how big can the Halloween crabs get?
They're pretty small, so they could be a little bit bigger than that, but they're also really shy. So keep in mind the parts that you're seeing of these hermit crabs are about half of what the actual hermit crab is. Most of it, think of how a lobster has that long tail. Well, a hermit crab has that long tail too, and it kind of wraps around the shell.
And Sue asks, without real eyes, like you were saying, how does a sea star find its food?
Yeah, it's able to navigate. You know, those eyes help it navigate a little bit. A lot of these invertebrates have some senses that we don't quite have, and it's hard to equate. But invertebrates can use a sense of smell to find things. They can use their sense of touch to find things as well.
All right. And Layla, age 6, asks, are starfish or moon jellies endangered?
Oh, do you know what? Some types of sea stars are endangered. The chocolate chip sea star is one that has been not classified as endangered yet, but it's something that people want to look at, especially since coral reefs themselves are endangered. There's a home to a lot of marine invertebrates, and if the coral ends up dying and disappearing, a lot of the life that lives in there also dies. So it is not specifically endangered, though.
All right, and we're going to end today with Roland's question of what do the horseshoe crabs do with their tail? You mentioned a few things, but talk to us a little bit more about its tail.
So they can, when they're swimming, it works as a rudder, so they can steer. If it were to flip on its back, which happens, it can use that like a little prop to flip itself back over. And it's sharp. If they get agitated, they might stick that up as a little bit of a defense.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. And the next time you do get to come to the Toledo Zoo, and unfortunately, we don't know exactly when that's going to be yet, but as soon as we find out, we will certainly let you know. But the next time you do get to come, make sure that you stop by here. Josh's education staff helps out at this exhibit, and all you really have to do is wash your hands and come up and ask your questions and get to see and touch these animals.
Yeah, it's a great stop. Really adds that hands-on aspect to the aquarium. So be sure to stop at the Ocean Lab and then go to the Shark and Ray Touch Tank too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this look inside the Ocean Lab, and we'll see you around the zoo tomorrow.